And we're going to talk about an interesting topic, a topic that everybody now wants to know about. The topic is the EB1A. As you know, EB2 is retrogress for India and for many other countries of the world. EB1A has a lot of advantages. Not only it's current, you also have the situation that it's a self-petition. You don't really need to go to an employer to file it. So we're going to talk about EB1A. Don't go anywhere. I would like you to subscribe to our channel, click on the subscribe button and the bell so that you get notification of any good news that we are bringing to you. So EB1A. EB1A are for people of extraordinary abilities, right? And how do you prepare a case of extraordinary ability? How do you even prove that? Anybody can think that they are of extraordinary ability, but unfortunately, it's not really, it doesn't work for everybody to be of extraordinary ability according to the law, according to the EB1A. The truth is that we all have our own talents, but unfortunately those talents have to really be in alignment with what the United States need for you to get a green card through it. I might be good at anything. I'm very good at archery, but doesn't mean I am of extraordinary abilities, right? So this is where we can come in and help you, but I'm going to go over what you need to actually prove that, right? You need, out of 10 criteria, you have to prove 3 of them, okay? However, if you have one really big, like an Olympic medal, a Pulitzer Prize, or a Nobel Prize, one is good enough, you can get it. Now, even when you prove those 3, you still have to show how you're going to advance the interests of the United States. And all the 3 that you're going to be approving, you have to prove that it is continuous, and you are continually doing that, and it will benefit you, and you will work in that field when you get a green card. Because remember, you are not having an employer when you're filing this most of the time. So we're going to go into on a few points, few tricks maybe of the trade. Unfortunately, we can't in one video go over all this. There are many points, but I'll try my best to cover one point at a time. Let us say you have a Pulitzer Prize. Well, these are the obvious cases that everybody can actually kind of prove. There's no big difficulties in doing that usually. But most people don't have that. But does that mean you still qualify for an EB1A? The answer is probably yes in some cases. So we're going to go over those, right? So first, you have to prove that you're of extraordinary ability in one of those fields: science, art, education, business, athletics. But it has to be through sustained national and international acclaim. It can be one-day thing, right? Well, if it is one day you won a medal, that's a different story. But nobody can do that really. They have to train, etc., be selected. So it has to be sustained. And by the time when we're filing the case, this thing has to be continuous, kind of. And that's where it gets tricky, because many times people don't get a job in that field immediately. They work in something else. But you have to show that you maintain sustain that national achievement. Now, in order to prove that, you can use evidence of many evidence, right? If of course you are a one-time deal, you just prove you won the Pulitzer Prize, your Oscar. Those are just one. You don't have to prove 3. But now, if you want to prove those 3 criteria are met, you must show that you continually worked in that area of expertise. For example, I'll take an example of a lawyer. Let's say he's a lawyer, but he's not practicing as a lawyer. You can't use that. I mean, it's very difficult to prove lawyers are of extraordinary abilities oftentimes, but some do. So you can't just say, okay, I stopped practicing for a while, but now I want to go back. So that's where everybody gets in trouble many times, unless they're already in that field and they're continually practicing. So that person will continually work in that area of expertise. So the documentation that you can show is really listed on the adjudicator's field manual, where you will see how the adjudicating officer look at your case. Just as a footnote here, the USCIS adjudicator's field manual is very interesting. For lawyers who are listening, it might be really one of the best sources to get your information. However, you need to also know the law. You can't just kind of go by what they are using. You also have to be creative. And that's one of the secrets of doing the EB1A, by the way. Be creative. Think outside the box. Because remember, that person who's coming to you is probably the cream, and that person is always thinking outside the box. How can you not think outside the box, right? So this is where a good lawyer will make a difference. Then you need to find documentation to prove that that person received some kind. Let's say we take the point number. I'm not listing the points here because everybody knows the points. You will see it online. It's all over the place. So I am going to take the points directly. So if you have to show that that person received a nationally or internationally recognized prizes or award of excellence in their field of endeavor, you need to show a major achievement, like a one-time achievement. That's one. And of course, you must provide how you were granted those awards. You cannot just say, I got them. And it has to come from a well-known entity, right? So now that's usually for those who are filing directly as well. So talking about an award, for example, which is one of the criteria that you can use out of the 10, you have to show where this award is coming from, okay? It cannot just be a Shah decides to give an award and that will be recognized, unless basically I made a name myself. So you have to go to the source of the award. Now, if you have a big organization, for example, and you can talk about Google, Microsoft, they're big enough, when they give an award, it can have a lot of weight. You can use that, right? But bottom line, some international organizations are not that well recognized in the US, so you need to dig and give a background of that organization. And the prize has to be awarded for excellence in that field, right? The beneficiary should be recipient directly of this award. However, let's say this award was allocated to a group of people. You have to show the link, how you're linked to that group. What is your function in that group? You might still be able to prove that one criteria. Okay. So now you will see that in those cases, when you have to do that, is that this individual was not specifically mentioned on that award. It was for a group of people, but if he formed part of that group, you might be able to use that to make your case, but you have to really go find a way to prove that he belonged to that group also. Okay, he basically participated in it. He was very, very active in that group and things like that. So you will probably have to prove that. You will need letters from others. You will need basically the organization that awarded the award. They also might give you some kind of letter if possible. Anything. We have primary, secondary, and tertiary evidence. We pile them up and we can make the case. So now the other situation is, of course, those internal awards. And I talked about that. I'm kind of referring to my notes here. Then you have membership in organizations. That's another element which we're going to talk about. Now, one of the second criteria is membership in organizations. And now, what are you looking for there, right? So just to have a membership in a paid organization is not going to work. It has to be an organization that really is very selective. They take a certain kind of people that do qualify, and those are the organizations that we're looking for to prove that other second criteria, right? So they really pick up people outstanding in their achievements, and this can be recognized by the international and the national experts, right? So you can just pick, okay, I have this group, they're really like rich people, okay, fine. That's not going to work. It has to be something that basically pick a specific kind of people. Okay. As far as the organization we were talking about is concerned, you have to have been invited, right? You cannot just push your way in. Well, you might. That depends on the situation, but you have to find a way to get invited into it. And how do you do that? That's particular to your field. You distinguish yourself, and that's already going to help you to make your case, right? And they will invite you. Once you get in, we have another criteria. By the way, a point here, you don't have to have 10 criteria, right? You have to have 3 of them. And the 3 has to be strong. You can also put other criteria to supplement it a little bit, maybe 4, but don't try to get all over the place and try to get a little bit of all the 10 criteria. It's not going to work. It has to be 3 strong. You can maybe put 4, 5, but 3 has to be strong out of them. Okay? So very important you understand that. You cannot, if you have all, good for you. But we have to prove 3 and prove it very strong. So pick the 3 strong ones and fight on that. So now we're going to talk also about, well, we talk about that. You have to be invited, and you have to also mention who are part of this organization, the kind of people in there, Stephen Hawking's, you name it, all those big shots. I'm just giving an example here, and who is Stephen Hawking? He's no longer here, but I'm just mentioning that. Well, sometimes some organization also have levels of membership, so you need to consider that too. Now, third one is your published materials. Okay, that's a big one because everybody talks about that. Oh, I have published materials, I have this, I have that, I have that. Good. It is an important part, but most people don't have it. So that's one of the factors that really kind of block people to move forward with the EB1A. Just to let you know, you don't need that. But if you have it, better for you. But it has to be in major trade publications, okay? And it cannot just be publishing anything. It has to be about your work, and it has to be also related to your, not only your work, but related to your field mostly, right? And you have to put the title, the date, any necessary translation that is required. For example, let's say you're from India and you're doing an EB1A, everything was published in any language, right? Let's say Tamil, you have to translate that, okay? So everything is important. When you translate it, it has to be a very good translation. So I will recommend getting a professional translator to do that, okay? So now if you are showing something in terms of a video, for example, and we get that also not only in EB1A, when it comes to other cases, when we show videos, you need to get transcript of those, transcribe them and give it to us, because they're not going to watch the videos, okay? So make sure you do that, and especially if you had a major interview with major networks and stuff like that, get that going, because they probably will not watch, and when we submit the case, it's usually on paper, and submitting that, they will probably not watch it. So make sure you get a transcript of that, and we can put that together in your package. Now, we have to, if it is published, we have to show the circulation of that paper. New York Times, Washington Journal, Science, you name it. So we have to show that. Now we're going to talk about number one, judging the work of others. Many people ask me the question, well, how will I judge the work of others, right? Well, if you are in your organization, you're doing very well, there's a big chance other organization will invite you to review the work or check on the work of others. Not supervising, check and review and judge if they are doing something well. They're writing a code, they are coming with some app, they want you to judge it, that will work. But if it is in your course of work, in your internal organization, we cannot use it. Okay. As much as we can kind of use it to support why you're able to do this judging for the other companies, this in itself will not help. So for example, if your job is to really review the work of others in your organization, you're paid for that, you cannot really use that. But the competitor, for example, or another company just tell you, hey, you know what, you know this well, we want you to judge our work here. Well, not competitor, you might not be able to do that, but hey, if it is you're allowed, that's fine, right? So this is the kind of judge that you're talking about. Also, many organizations, they will organize some kind of event, and that's not part of your work, by the way, and they will want you to judge the work, like a young group, things like that. You can use those kind of event to supplement your case. So that's another point that you might get on your side, and that's number 4 in the criteria that you can use. Going back to the previous element again, number 4, if you peer review an article, a scholarly article by one of your peers, that's also considered that you're judging the work of others. Student, I was talking about that, like you have student contests oftentimes, organizations or major companies also organize that to get talents, etc. You also can use that, but it has to be related to your field. Now let's go to point number 5. This is to show that you have evidence of alien, original, scientific, scholarly, artistic, athletic, or business-related contributions in the major field, right? Of course, the work has to be original. Now, how much original? That's remain to be determined, because nothing is 100% original, to my opinion. I might be wrong, but there are many original things out there. But you have to, especially if you're an artist, it might be very important that you're original, right? But an artist, like an athlete, they pretty much do a lot of the same movement, they just do it better. So that's still original. And it has to be of major significance in the field. Something can be original, but it has no significance in the field. You're not going to prove that. One thing I've noticed when I read the letters of recommendations or the peer letters or things like that by the candidates is that
an objective point.
They tend to write in generic way, right? So what they do, the mistake they do is they don't really look at it point enough, and they tend to take their close friends to write the letters. So you might want to further the persons from you and writing objectively about you. It will make your case stronger. But that doesn't mean you cannot use someone who is your peer working with you to write the letters. It just makes it weaker. That's all. And everything in those cases depends on weight, right? It's like putting things on a scale, right? You need to pull the scale in your favor. Right, USCIS is going with the idea, okay, hold on a second. We will grant it, they are neutral, but you keep pulling, and all this gone together, you make a case and you win. Right, so in this case, you can provide testimonials, and testimonials doesn't have to be really kind of extravagant. The simpler, the better, okay? A lot of people will try to write legalese. We're not here to write legalese, right? There are scientific terms, there's stuff like that. Leave that to your lawyer. The lawyer will write the legal part. Your job is to write the factual part. Many people tend to look at the law and forget about the facts. The truth is that it's 75% facts, I'll say even 80%, and only 20% law. Then the part which the lawyer has to be good is to be able to match those facts to the law. Not take the law to match to those facts, but match those facts to the law. And this is where it gets really, really the work of an artist to do that. We have some great people in the office who have done a very, very good job about that. But at the same time, sometimes we ourselves are we face a wall because we don't know, we can only know enough about technology, about certain sciences, but certain art. But luckily we have done enough of those cases, we might be able to help. But you need to really and this is where you can also have an expert opinion, write a good letter about this for you. Let's talk about point 6, right? Point 6 is when you are an author of scholarly articles, right, in your field, and they were published on trade publications or other major media. We talk about a little bit about articles published about you, but this time you are writing the article that is going to be published, right? Those are pretty straightforward. Most of the people who have a PhD and things like that, they do have at least. But that doesn't mean you have a PhD, you will win, okay, by the way. A lot of people make that mistake, right? So you can also co-author those articles. You don't have to really be the main person who is really writing it. That will be helpful, but it has to be something major. Then it has to be related, of course, to your field. For example, I'm a lawyer. If I write about agriculture, maybe it will work, but if I have a background in it, but not really that much. But if I write an article about law, about immigration law specifically, about not only immigration law, about EB1A, for example, it will have weight because we narrowed down right now what is exactly that I am, right? Not only am I an immigration lawyer, I've been doing it for 19 years now almost. I've been focusing on employment base, although I have done a lot of good cases on family base, including all those abuse cases. I'm just going on this as an example. But at the end of the day, when you put it in a funnel, what I do best is employment base. Okay, so we have a very good track record on them, and we have been really, really successful in many cases. And that's what we are talking about here. We take it like in a funnel. It goes from up, down, 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 down. We narrow it down to the point that you will become the expert. Because I always say that you don't want to be a big fish in a big lake or a big pond. You want to be a big fish in a small lake. And that's what we have to create, that small lake. Now, number 7, these are for evidence of display of aliens' work in the field of artistic exhibitions, right? Or showcase, right? What happens here is, we're talking about artists here mostly, right? People who are on the technical side, whom we are dealing mostly in our office, they don't really have this. Although, yes, you might have some kind of exhibition. Let's say you invented something, you have a patent. Okay, a patent, by the way, is very helpful. And you're showcasing that invention, right? I remember we had a case of someone working on something, a special water filtering system, etc. And this was showcased in an exposition and etc. And we were able to use that. Not as much, but it was helpful. But for artists, that's what you're, especially like I have a painting behind me done in pieces like a puzzle, then they put it together. This is artistic work, right? And putting it together itself is artistic work because those guys who have to do that, they themselves have to come and put it together. And that's an example right there, I can tell you. And if you are not in that, then you don't have to worry about that because you won't have that. So now number 8. Number 8 is if the alien has performed in a leading or critical role for an organization and establishment that has a distinguished reputation. Okay, what does that mean? It means if you have, for example, you work for, let's give an example, Microsoft. We had Cisco, Google, Apple, and you're distinguishing there. Well, hey, obviously we can use that, provided they are willing to give you those letters and testimonials stating that you are, and plus we can prove you contributed something in that company, right? It cannot just be, okay, I just work there. No, that's not. You have to really be furthering their research and development department, etc., but not necessarily in there. So we have to look at on a case-by-case basis. Then we can tell you if you do. You have to show that you led a critical role, right? A critical role means you're more than important. The word critical, very, very significant. Someone who is not the ordinary style, without putting anybody down. Everybody is important, but this is what you're looking for, right? And of course, the organization has to be big, right? It can't, not big, but it has to be recognized. It can be small, but it's really something. Like, I'll give you an example. Rolex. Rolex, I think, is owned by only 5 or 7 lawyers. People probably don't know that. I think that's what I heard. And they don't admit other people, but they have a research and research department, and they also have other people working with them. But yet, if you have distinguished yourself there, guess what? You got it, right? And again, forgive me if I'm mistaken for Rolex. I'm hoping I'm right on that. So now you can prove that by showing, right? So if it is a well-known organization, like I say, Google, Microsoft, etc., it's kind of obvious. But if it is something that people don't know that much, but is big still, and I was using the example of Rolex, people who wear Rolex watches really value it, but other people might not even know. So I'm just saying in terms of what it is, right? And now it has to be not a managerial role, but above that. You have to show, one of the tricks to show that is to show an organizational chart, a strong one, and where you position yourself in that, okay? And show how you contributed to those activities in there. A lot of things to show, by the way. But remember, I'm going with all the 10 points here. You don't have to prove all the 10. We picked the best of 3, right? Now, you can provide letters from employers that were working with you, you were working for, and also you can provide other employees' letters, but that doesn't give that much weight sometimes, but you can prove that. But letters from the employer are the best, and if they support you, that would be great, okay? So now we're going to go to point 9. So we'll go now on point number 9, right? High salary. Amazingly good, this one, right? Because especially we are in the Bay Area, and I know this video is going around pretty much all over the world. So in the Bay Area, salary is pretty high compared to the peers, right? There are many ways to compare that. You don't have to go exactly by the market, but you can also look at what is around you. For example, other employees that are working together with you, because they're not paid that much directly. But then if you're overseas, how do you calculate that? You have to look at it from the geographical perspective. You cannot compare the salary of someone in America with the one in India, although now it's kind of matching. You need to use that geographical place. But salary is very, very interesting because many people have it. Most of the time, people who have extraordinary abilities, they do have that salary. So it's important that you look into that very, very closely, and you have to provide proof of that. And there are many ways to do that. And it depends also now how you're getting paid, right? Are you getting paid on a freelance, contractual? etc., etc. So those are details you have to really kind of. Um, One of the ways to do that, I think USCIS has a statistics of list of websites you can use to go and compare the honored book. You have the salary comparison stuff online, but it has to be reliable. But you also can come up with alternative ways, right? Especially in your country. If we're doing any, by the way, an EB1A, I can file it. We can file it from when you are sitting, for example, in Africa, India. We can bring you here. So in those cases, you need to look for the publications of what are the average, the mean salary of people. Not only the mean, but you are doing better than them. And people often ask me, how much better? Well, that depends. If you're making twice, that's great. But if you're making better, we'll have to look at it because it's very hard to answer like that. The Bureau of Statistics have good data also, so you can use that. And you use the actual currency of your country to calculate that. You don't kind of go and convert it into dollars. Well, you can, it makes it easier. So that's number 9. Number 10 is evidence of commercial success. That person who invented, I'm going to use a quote from a movie, posted, in the beginning it didn't work actually. I think another company took it over and they did very well with it. They were very smart. What they did, interestingly, they started basically taking post-it and giving it to secretaries, to people in the office for free and tell them, hey, try it. And once they got the hook of it, everybody wanted it. I don't think now a lot of people use them because we are very much electronic, but it was a great invention, right? And now if you're an athlete or an artist, an actor, things like that, then you have to look at the box office, how much money the movie made, and that will be easy. You can have them on IMDb and all the stuff. IMB, I don't know. So you can find those stuff, right? And many people tend to think that they're not good enough, especially people who are very smart and have extraordinary ability. They tend to see themselves as not that great. And that's one of the issue we have, because I think it's something that they're humble people. So they tend to think they're not that great. And that's the part where you have to really boost that to show them that they are good enough to make the case. That's all we need. We need to pass the exam. We don't need to come out first. Although in this case, you are at the top of the top, right? So that's an important thing that I wanted to mention. Now, there is a test in the case. There's a case that kind of helps, is the Kazarian test. It's a case that was issued, and we have to show the quality of the evidence submitted, right? So the first part is to look at the things. The second is the evidence itself, because I can say I'm a great attorney, but if I cannot prove it, it doesn't make sense. Everybody can say he's good. I say I'm good. Well, sometimes I'm not good, but we have to prove it by evidence. For example, for me, I have been on the major news. I've won many awards. I'm still being listed as a top attorney on AVO, but that doesn't mean I'm on the top 5%. It just means that I'm good at what I do, and that's what we need. And then now the other thing that you have to prove is not have to prove. We said that earlier in the beginning. You have to prove that you have sustained national and international acclaim, right? You cannot say, okay, I did that like 10 years ago, now I'm fine. So, yes, we have this case where the quality of the evidence is going to be assessed, right? So we need to show that you have sustained this international and national acclaim, right? And you have not only raised up, but you have kept it, you have maintained it. And many times people have shifted, right? But still, it depends how long it has happened, etc. If you have kept in touch with it, you have continued doing other stuff. And then it is time sensitive. Let's put it this way. Now, there's one more thing. It has to, even though people see it as a national interest waiver requirement, it has to further the interest of the United States. Okay? You cannot just come, you might be the best in your field, but guess what? America doesn't really need that person, that kind of scientist, that kind of athlete, then it won't work. But many times we're able to find out that America will need it or might need it. I remember we did a case from Pakistan a long time ago, where it was a national interest waiver actually, where we had to show that a reporter was important. And one of the elements we used, one of the arguments we made is that this person is of national interest because we are trying to bring other countries to understand our values. And he has been writing about this all the time. And this will further the interest of the United States. And national interest waiver are more difficult when it comes to this part, because you have to be of national interest. Not only you have to be of interest in EB1A, you have to be of national interest. So almost like a doctor during COVID, a scientist working on nuclear technology, etc., right? So ladies and gentlemen, this is a video. I've tried my best. Yes, I've tried my best to compile as much as possible. But remember, a national interest waiver, or an EB1A in this case, I'm saying national interest waiver, an EB1A is not obvious, okay? Many people who are very intelligent, very capable, full of talents, of extraordinary abilities, they cannot present themselves this way because they're so focused in their work. You know, like myself, for example, I'm not of extraordinary ability. Well, maybe I am, but I don't know. I will not be able to present it because that's not what I focus on. I focus on my work. And this is where we come in. We can help you. We take that problem from you, we solve it. But you have to give us what it takes to make it. We can only be the cook. You have to bring the ingredients. I wanted to thank you for listening to that video. It has been long, but it's very worth it. I want you to share it, subscribe to it, and please contact our office if you need any help. Anything I told you today is my opinion. You should not act or refrain to act solely on the information provided. You should contact an attorney if you have any questions. 510-742-5887 is our number to call. And if anything I missed in that, feel free to call or write under the comments, and I will try my best to answer. Good luck to you. Wish you all the best.